Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound Podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
Buckle up your seatbelts. You're in store for a great episode today. I got to have a great conversation with Frankie Matos, singer, songwriter, producer, and podcaster. He really had some great insight into the process. I really love his music. I particularly love his beautiful voice. Hey, let's listen to his song, Unglorious.
That's okay, I've always been that way. No matter what you say, doesn't bother me. It's who I'm meant to be, meant to be. I am ungraceful, but not disgraceful, just a face full of anxious smiles. But if we chat a while, then you'll get to see the passion inside of me. Don't put a bag over my face. Just don't look at my face in the first place.
I'm too big, I'm too loud, pick me out from a crowd. I'm too big, I'm too loud, pick me out from a crowd.
I'm too big, I'm too loud, pick me out from a crowd. I am unglorious, but that's okay, I've always been that way. No matter what you say, doesn't bother me. It's who I'm meant to be.
Hey, everybody. I'm really excited about today's guest. I met him at Mr. Beery's at, I believe it was a Lady Beast program with Ann O'Rourke, and I had Ann O'Rourke as a early guest on the podcast, and I was encouraged to talk to Frankie. And Frankie Matos was not ready at the moment, but timing is everything. And I want to welcome Frankie Matos to the Long Island Sound Podcast. Good to have you here, Frankie.
It's good to be here and to be ready. It's good to be back in the music world that I was sort of only one toe in for a while. So it means a lot to be here.
So what do you mean by that? You had one toe in. You were half in, half out, or?
Yeah, not to be too cliche about it, but I think everybody has a pandemic story of I was doing this and then the pandemic happened and then I wasn't doing this anymore. Whatever this is in your life, And for me, it just, there was nowhere to play, no money to be made. And I got offered a a day job, and that consumed my life for a while. And I'm still there, but I've just been making strides to try and balance it a little better and sort of pull myself out of the funk, if you would, from the just the, I don't want to say depression necessarily because it's such a loaded word, but the malaise of the pandemic era. Just some people, it inspired them to write and to work on art. And for me, I was just like, I don't want to have any part of expressing how I feel in this right now. So, I guess as we pulled out of that.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel, Frankie, especially when you have divided passions. It's like me. I my passion is podcasting and talking to people and meeting people and trying to appease my curiosity about how singer-songwriters and how people produce music. I find it fascinating. But then there's the day job that puts food on the table, and my spouse always reminds me, hey, don't forget your day job. But the pandemic and quarantine really threw a lot of us for a loop, and I don't think anybody bounced back really quick. But there was an opportunity for some people to dive into their creative juices to produce it. I couldn't say I was not one of those people. So it's good to have you back, Frankie. Back in the game. So
good to be back.
Yeah. Hey, I got to say this. I was listening to your music. You got a really great voice. I don't know if you have perfect pitch, but I really enjoyed listening to your music. And, particularly there were a couple of videos where you were harmonizing, I think with Ann O'Rourke and some other young lady. You were doing an Everly Brothers tune, if I recall. It was really came.
Yeah, that would be Sam Montaleo, a friend of ours.
Yeah, it came into it really well. So I got to ask you this: let's reel the pages of the years back. What was your influence to Did you sing around the house? Or you come from a family that liked to sing and musical, or how did the muse grab you to be a writer and an instrumentalist?
Well, I'm probably not the first. Definitely not the first in my family to do some version of what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Probably the person who's pursued it in the way that we know now of the modern sort of singer-songwriter. But on both sides of my family, there's definitely people who play in some capacity and sing in some capacity. But probably the most direct, at least in my house and in my world growing up, my mom likes to sing. She would sing at church and in the car and such. And my dad played music as a kid, and he has MS, so he couldn't really play most of the time that I've been able to register memories. But he, always talked about it, so I always admired musicians. And I have my Uncle Mike, who was in a band in the 90s, and he taught me a lot about self-recording and playing and let me borrow some of my first gear. So I would say there was a good, healthy musical influence in my family life growing up. Not so much as some of the other people I know who they would play in a band with their parents as kids or something, but
right.
Definitely enough that I can't take all the credit.
Yeah, I tell you, of the artists that I've interviewed, it's all over the gamut. It really is. I mean, there are some that are really blessed with musical families. There's others who have good writers and good readers that really dive into books that help them become good songwriters. And like my family, I think we played the radio. That was like the only instrument. But there was always music, which was influencing us in a lot of different ways. So on that vein, if you had to pick 3 artists that you would say, hey, you'd like to emulate or had a good influence on you, who would they be?
Depends when you asked me, but earliest for sure would be, I'll group these as one artist, the Beatles, especially Paul McCartney was the big one. When I saw him in concert, that was like the second concert I'd ever saw. That was when I really dove into trying to make music as a passion. So that's the big number one. Mm-hmm. After that, when I was in college, just around the same time, I had gotten a record player a few years before, and I was gifted a bunch of albums. And so at the same time, I got into Billy Joel and the Beach Boys really deeply. So those were the people I was listening to when I wrote most of the stuff that I have out at the moment. And then, in college, I got into all the singer-songwriter people and more modern stuff. And I've had my little rabbit holes that I've jumped down the last few years, but those were the early ones for sure.
Gotcha. Now, in picking up your instrument, did you also begin writing songs at the same time, or did that come a little later for you?
It's tough to nail down exactly when I would credit myself with having written a song because when you're a kid and you're just noodling around on instruments, I remember I can still hear it in my head. There's this little tune that was literally just an ascending and descending C major scale on the piano, but we put some gibberish words to me and my brothers and cousins because we'd gotten this thrifted or gifted piano, this old out-of-tune wooden upright thing
Right.
that somebody didn't need anymore, and we had the space for it, thankfully. And so we just would hammer away at that thing and be like, look at us, we're writing songs. But we were really just like slamming on the keys. So, I mean, if you consider that writing songs, then I guess I've been writing them since I was in elementary school, but I wouldn't really credit myself with having written anything worth calling a song until probably my last year of high school. And even then, I still sometimes go back and forth on how much I like that material.
I hear you. You know, it's funny when you were talking about having the piano in your house. We had a piano as well, and my sister and I took lessons. And Mrs. Wallace, I still remember my teacher today, and I was horrible at practicing. But I do remember the noodling aspect of just discovering the piano and improvising just when nobody was around. And I remember, I think I stopped by, I was up in Geneseo at college, and I stopped by a piano and just started playing on it. And my friends were like, wow, you're really good. I really was horrible, but I was just improvising, and it sounded good. So I didn't tell them how horrible I was. I left that a big secret.
You should give yourself credit because that has probably an indicator that you at least understand what music sounds like, even if you don't necessarily have the knowledge to make it the way that one we consider proper. You have a sense about it that people who don't know that you're untrained are just assuming you are.
Yeah,
so
fake it till
that's to your credit.
Fake it till I make it.
That's life. That's all life.
That's right, exactly. You got to picture yourself doing it. And in saying that, let me ask you, what was your tell me about your first experience taking your guitar and singing in front of people. How long ago was that? And tell me about it. What was the experience like?
People or person changes, but I think probably the one I'll credit person to the first time, because if this person would have shot me down or told me I was terrible, I kind of wonder if I would have had the bug that, that bit me, that made me go, I got to do this in front of more people. But I had this first girlfriend in high school, when I was a little kid, probably I think my sophomore year of high school. And she knew I played guitar, but I hadn't written songs or sang and played guitar. I didn't even think I could possibly sing and play at the same time. I was like, how can you do both? And
right.
But she wanted me to teach her little brother how to play Basket Case by Green Day. And so I learned it, and it's a simple song. It's like, the chords are essentially canon in D. And so I learned it on my acoustic guitar and brought it over to her basement. And I played it for her and her brother, and I kind of sang the song to show them, here's what it is. So I'm not just hammering away on the guitar. And I was like, yeah, I'll show you how to play it. But, the girl had said oh, that was good. And her parents were like, oh, we could hear you from up here. That sounded good. And I think after that I was like, I should try that again. So I think the first time I played in front of people multiple was, there was a little, I was in the church youth group growing up, and there was a little talent show thing. And so I played for a couple of my friends there. And then after that was it. I started looking for open mics and sneaking into bars I wasn't allowed in because I was too young.
Yeah, I tell you, the influence of two things come to mind, which seems to be a common denominator. One, the influence of church on music and giving you an opportunity to sing, and open mics, most definitely to learn your craft and go from there. Hey, Frankie, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the song our audience heard coming in, Unglorious. And I want to talk about how you develop the muse from that. Hey, everybody, we're going to be back with Frankie Matos, producer, singer, songwriter. I think you did a podcast too, from what I remember.
I sure do.
Okay. Stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to groove to the rhythm of Long Island's music scene? The Long Island Sound Podcast invites you on a melodic journey through the talented musicians and thriving venues that keep the island rocking. Get your front row seat by subscribing to the Long Island Sound Podcast on gigdestiny.com. Let the music ignite your soul. Find us wherever you stream your podcast.
Everyone, we're back. This is Steve Yusko, your not so humble host, as my wife would say, with Frankie Matos. And Frankie, before the break, we talked about the song our audience heard, Unglorious. Tell me how that came to you. Was it the old question, was it the melody and then the lyrics or vice versa? But how did you develop that song?
Yeah, that old question, right?
Yeah.
The best I can remember, it was maybe my last year of college, or my original run of college anyway. I ended up dropping out or taking a break. I may go back, but I was in the practice room because I was in the music program at Stony Brook, and I had keyboard class, and I was very bad and still remain very bad at playing the keyboard. And I was supposed to be practicing my work for the class, and instead I just decided to goof off and mess around on the piano. And there's an artist who, the song ended up not sounding anything like her, but at the time I was getting into, there's this artist called Dodie who has these very introspective singer-songwriter-y, like just tender tracks. And there was this song called 6 out of 10 that's it's an older cut now, but at the time wasn't so old. And it's just this perspective of yourself where you're looking sort of from the outside and being like, I think this is how people see me. And
Sure.
So I was just kind of noodling at the piano, and I had that phrase, I am unglorious. And then call it positivity or call it, this is just the lyrics that fit. But I guess the twist turned into making it more positive and being like, but that's okay, and
Right.
it just spun out from there. And then it took a while to take shape musically because I didn't really know what to do with it, because it's really just that sort of like those like Earth Angel chords sort of, waltzy song that was popular in the 50s and early 60s. But it's I ended up recording it just at a couple years later. And
Okay.
I was just playing around with it, and I was like, oh, this will be the demo track. And then I put that out as the real thing. That's the end of the story.
Nice. I'm interested in, because I've put little pieces of thousands of songs, which I've captured somewhat in prose, but not so much in melody. And I'm really kicking myself in the ass for not doing so. So when bring me back to that moment where you're at the piano. Is it just kind of musically lingers in your head, or did you record it on your phone? And where'd you take it? Where did it progress from there? I know, it kills me when people, I dreamt it in 30 seconds. I wrote the whole damn thing. But most songs are a process. How did you go from taking that phrase and noodling on the piano? Did you capture it right then and there and bring it home, or did it linger on your phone or wherever?
Well, Unglorious. Well, for one, anything on the piano always is a weird exception to me, and I hope to change this in the future. I hope I hear this a year from now and think, what a young, inexperienced child. But I'm not very good at the piano, so typically I'm just maybe playing one note or one half chord, a dyad, a triad, just something to sound like something. And but I know for sure what I had was the Dodie song I was sort of thinking of has this refrain that's like, I feel like a 6 out of 10. And so in my head I go, I am unglorious, and I was like, okay, let me go from there. And so when I had that little melody to it, it kind of has to go down now. So na 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 na. And okay, now I'm gonna go to the relative minor, and it's like, so there's a little bit of I guess mild beginner level theory to it. I probably wasn't thinking that hard about it at the moment. It probably just felt natural. But, thinking about it later, I can go, okay, that's why I did this, why I did that. So I probably had those 4 chords and maybe some lyrics. I don't remember exactly how far I got in that little session. I probably wrote it down. Maybe I did a voice memo. I don't really remember, to be honest. I have a terrible memory for these things. But, I was frequenting this open mic where I met most of my friends that doesn't exist anymore, called Vox Populi. My friend Mike Perlmutter ran it. And that was probably the first place I played it. But I think I played it with all open chords and So it took a while to develop. So it didn't really come out right there on the piano, but I think for me, a song always starts with one little idea where I go, this is enough for me to branch into the rest of it. You know, if it hooks me, then I go, all right, let me expand it. So I guess that must have hooked me enough.
Hey, so as in composing, are you mostly a sole practitioner in that you write all your own stuff, or have you branched out and collaborated, or do you have plans to collaborate? You know, where do you sit on that?
I have been trying to warm myself up to the idea of bringing other people into it. It's only very recently in my life that I have people I think I trust enough with that vulnerability. That's the word I'm looking for.
That works.
You know, because by the time you finish writing, you've decided, and I spoke with Pete Mancini about this on my own podcast.
Great guy. Great guy, by the way.
Love Pete. And, you know, because I was asking him essentially that question, because I was saying, I would really like to collaborate with people. How do you do it? And he was saying, well, you know, by the time that you've written, you've decided how much to be vulnerable about. You're done with it, right? So when you let other people into that process, you know, you've probably decided at the very least, this is what the song's about. This is what I'm going to write. And then you're having other people, you know, in that process. So maybe I can start there. But I do have some people in my life who are interested in collaborating. So maybe in the near future, but up until now, it's been just a one-man operation.
Yeah, I've talked to other artists who've done some interesting collaborations with strangers, so to speak, you know, where they'll do a songwriting circle, I don't know what you call it, and they'll come up with, you know, let's write something about windows, you know, and they're purposeful about it in piecing stuff together, whether they're piecing it into their own song or a group song. It's an interesting exercise to, you know, put out. So, hey, let's do this. Let's take another break, just real quickly. And when we come back, I want to talk about the new single that you have out that I really want everybody to hear. Okay, everybody, hang with us. We'll be right back with Frankie Matos.
Calling all music enthusiasts, Long Island is a wellspring of talent, and the Long Island Sound Podcast is here to celebrate its vibrant music scene. Tune in to discover the stories behind Long Island's incredible musicians, their creative process, and the iconic venues that make the music come live.
We are back, and you know that because you hear me talking, and I'm with Frankie Matos. Hey, Frankie, before the break, we were talking about your new single, which is I Like the Room Better When We're In It Together, which is a great phrase. Tell me about that song. It's released, right? It's out in the marketplace? It's out in the marketplace?
It sure is. Yep, came out in March, which makes it my most recent release.
Tell me about it. How did that come about for you?
That was a funny one. It's actually not the first song I wrote after my sort of unintentional hiatus, but it was the one that sort of got this buzz in the room whenever I'd play it at open mics and stuff. And, you know, my friends, like my musician friends, really love this other one that I'd wrote. I mean, they like that too, of course. I mean, they're very supportive, but it's funny because I was like, oh, I'm sure that the one I just wrote will be my next single. But all of a sudden I'm bringing this song to open mics and people are singing along to it by the second chorus. Strangers, you know,
cool.
People I've never met who've never seen me play, who've obviously never heard the song because it was brand new at the time. And so I was like, okay, I've got something here. I've got to do something with this. So that really put a fire under my rear end to go and finally do a proper recording for the first time in a few years. And so, yeah, that one
you know
came out
what's
of
cool
that.
about that is using these open mics as like an incubator for audience reaction, you know, for better or for worse. So that's a pretty cool story that someone's actually singing along. That tells you that, hey, this is something that's going to stick in somebody's mind when they hear it, you know. So
Right. Yeah, that had never really happened before. I mean, my friends who knew my songs would sing along after hearing them for years and years. But, you know, for an audience of strangers to be, and granted, it's to their credit or to the songs, what, you know, just to be frank about it, no pun intended. It's simple and easy to follow along to, probably more than anything else I've ever written. But if you didn't like it, you wouldn't be singing along. So I have to assume I did
That's right.
something right.
So now, when you go out, and I see that you're gigging around the island, do you strictly play alone, or are you in a duo, or have you pulled any bands together? What's your experience been with that?
Well, the real answer is that I would like to have a band, and I would like to have, more production value to my shows, to my gigs. It's just very hard to organize that, and it doesn't feel right to do it without paying people or giving them something in return. And typically a gig isn't really paying enough for you to do that without pulling money out of your own pocket, and just hasn't been the right circumstances yet. But so for mostly out of necessity, I am a solo player most of the time. I've been trying to get a little Facebook network going of people who can trade in sort of favors for each other, who can say, like, I'll play bass in your show if you come and play lead guitar in mine, or whatever. But I haven't quite got that off the ground yet. But I have the group. I just haven't managed.
That's
to
a
make
good idea.
happen.
It's almost like music barter. When you think about it, a music bartering group would be a great idea. It's funny because when you bring that up, and this wasn't my intention in the question, is what I found in speaking. One, a lot of artists on Long Island know of each other, admire each other, but don't always run into each other because they're playing opposite and gigs and here and there, and it takes a number of years to develop that relationship. And then, hey, if you happen to, Sundays seem to be a good day that artists will come and see other artists play somewhere. That was my experience. We did this thing at a place called Fire Island Vines with my guitar teacher, Mike Nugent, who's a great guy. And Mike knows the world. And Mike opened, I can't tell you, thousands of doors to me, who's just a schmuck, who is not a musician by any stretch of the imagination. But he opened a lot of doors for me. And we started doing these like shows. And then all of a sudden, there'd be 4 or 5 other musicians in the audience supporting him and then coming up and playing here and there. And I like to revive that. I mean, summer is usually like the time to pick up the golden eggs because there's so many venues that are looking for people to play. And there's that backlog after quarantine I think, for a lot of people to get out. But I'd like to kick up the Long Island sound check, or whatever we're going to call it, and do something like that. And maybe it can be a collaborative effort to network, you know what I mean? To have those conversations and have people hear you live. Because I think it's so different than a recording. It's just somebody, they can see, hey, yeah, this guy's an entertainer. Hey, look, they're singing to a song. Shit like that I think is priceless, really. So, and there I go talking about myself.
For sure.
Where we're going. Hey, let's do this.
No, that's it. That's not. You're talking about community. You're talking about how stuff happens. That's the reality of the scene.
I tell you, if I had a wish, if I had like money that's dripping out of my brain to pay it, I'd love to either promote a festival or put some sort of gathering together, strictly musicians and those who really support them, to do something like that. I've been to, and it just came into my brain right now. You ever go to the Bethpage Village restoration? It's a wonderful place in Old Bethpage that has all these old buildings, circa 1600s, 1800s, and they have this huge barn there that they actually do weddings at. It would just be a great venue for music. It just looks like where you can have a hootenanny. For those who know what a hootenanny is. Yeah, that's for the old folks. But a hootenanny is a shit good time with a lot of musicians and music lovers. So, anyway.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a barn in their backyard who did that a few summers ago.
It's a great time and a great way to collaborate and meet new friends. That's what life's about. So before we forget about the song, it's called, speaking of rooms, I like the room better when we're in it together. Check it out, everybody. We'll be right back after the song. Stick with us.
Friends to like the room better whenever you're in it. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Every week we cook together in my kitchenette, and I still can't believe this isn't happening yet. I stare at you through the stovetop steam while thinking to myself, we make a lovely team. Then you give me that look. You know I can't help but get overtook by those eyes, the ones that spark when they connect with mine, with mine, with mine. I'm crazy about you, there's no other way to spin it, 'cause I like the room better whenever you're in it. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. If we play a game, I don't even have to win it. I just like the room better whenever you're in it. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together. Ooh, I like the room better when we're in it together.
Hey, everybody. Good to have you back after that. It's going to be a hit. It's just a great song that people sing to, from what I hear, at open mics. And it's hard to picture if they're singing along when they hear your song on Spotify. But I hope they do. And I hope you have great success. They better
be.
I wish you great success. It's a really, really good song, Frankie. Hey, I want to talk to you
Thank you.
about your recording process, how you got into that. Tell me a little bit about your podcast too. I'm really interested in what you play around with, what you do with that.
Yeah, that all goes hand in hand because it just comes from a passion I have for audio production. I really like, I mean, as every artist or most artists will tell you, there is the powerful feeling in being a creative comes from, well, I hate to say making something out of nothing, because the quote unquote nothing is years of other people's knowledge
Sure.
that's been passed on to me and influences, but we'll say for the simplicity's sake, making something where there once was nothing. And these are the tools we use to do it, microphones and interfaces and computers and, once upon a time, reel-to-reel tape, I suppose, and other such things. But, I started making little recordings of myself when I was a little kid. I was in a elementary school chorus, and I just wanted to know what my own voice sounded like. And we had a little, old headset computer thing, one of those that plugs into both the headphone jack and the little microphone jack. They're both those 3.5 millimeter jacks, which you don't see on computers anymore. And because this was an old computer, I was second grade or third grade or something. And I sang some old Christmas song, the Christmas is Coming song, but I sang it in my little high girly voice. I had this falsetto, which is where the falsetto
Nice.
I use today comes from. because my voice started changing early, and all the people in the chorus were girls, and so I had to match their tone. So I actually learned to sing like that first. But I immediately destroyed that recording because, of course, as anybody who has ever recorded their own voice knows, it does not sound good until you've done a lot to it, compressors and EQ and all such things that I didn't even know existed when I was in third grade. So, but that was just that was so satisfying early on, and I just iterated on that forever, over and over again. I probably credit my little brother was the first one to introduce me to the software I use now, which I'd like to get out of using this because it's kind of not good for what I do, but FL Studio, it's more for electronic music, for loops, but it's cheap, and he got a copy to noodle around with, and so I've been using that same that same license for years now. I've recorded everything I've ever done on it. I recorded my stuff. I recorded an EP for Ann O'Rourke. I recorded an EP for my friend Holden Miller, who's doing really well. Not because of that EP, but I'm still proud of it. And so it's just been a bug that bit me early, and the podcast is part of that. It's the next piece of that. I really I got into podcasts in college, just listening to them. I didn't even really know what they were before then, and they become a huge part of my routine, including yours. I've listened to many an episode. And it's just, I just like it. It's the friend that's in the room while you don't have to contribute to the conversation. You can be a little less lonely when you're working on something or driving. And I was like, I want to do that. So I just started doing one. I had the idea right before the lockdown. And in the earliest iteration of it, while it was probably technically not safe to get together, my friend Karen Bella and I just sat in my parents' backyard because I was living with my parents back then. So that's how long ago I started it. I just hooked up this microphone that you see on camera here, if there's video, and another one like it. And actually, no, this I didn't even have this yet. I had a cheaper one. I had these little $20 Behringer microphones, but they sounded okay. But you can definitely hear the echo of the alleyway we were sitting in, because it was like going back to the backyard between two houses. So so much echo, and but it was fun, and I liked it so much, and I decided that I would keep doing it once in a blue moon. I'd like to do it more. I just I don't want to force it, and I don't want to run out of guests. So I tend to put them out every couple of months. I think we've probably had mostly the same guests, or I think you've had pretty much all of my guests on yours at some point. Ann and Delaney Hafner and Pete and all these people. Just great people who know how to say interesting stuff about being artists, and so that's what it's about. And that's what I do. I know.
So interesting. So I backed into podcasting. One, it was during quarantine. A friend at the time said, hey, can you be the host? You seem like a good guy to do it. And I really fell in love with it. And I was like, I think I can do this. That podcast fell apart because it was real arduous to put together. We had to depend upon his son to do it in Pro Logic and all this stuff. And I'm a gearhead. I love technology. It's like my sandbox where I love to play. And I just went to YouTube and I followed this guy, Pat Flynn, who talks all about podcasting since he started back in 2012. And there was just so much information that I found, wow, I can do this. I picked up Audacity, which is a free program, and I played around with that. And I made my mistakes and, a disaster before you become a master type of thing. But I really love it. But, the more you get into it, man, the more I got to know, particularly when it comes to sound and how you can manipulate it or correct it. And then, it's like going to a psychology class and they tell you don't psychoanalyze yourself. Well, don't record yourself and then become a recording engineer, quasi-recording engineer, because you'll pick your shit apart, man. I was like, I say wow way too much. You can hear me breathe in between every sentence. Like I'm an asthmatic. I am asthmatic, but, emphysemic,
I think that's a good way to learn, though, because if your voice is so precious to you, if you're just recording other people, you may not have such a fine-toothed comb to go through it with, because you go, oh, this is their voice, sounds fine to me. But when you have, your voice and your personality, your brand is your baby, right? So if you don't sound good to yourself, when you're hearing yourself, then you're going to really learn how to edit the heck out of it. Right.
But I tell you, there's also, as far as podcasting goes, I found a big generation gap. So people, and this is just my opinion, people like above 45 oh, wow, you have a podcast? How do I listen to a podcast? I'm like, holy moly.
Oh yeah.
Right. And then you've got the sweet spot is like from 15 to 40. They know what podcasting is. They listen to a lot of podcasts. People who travel, and commute, they're into podcasts. So I had a studio owner come to me and said, wow, you got a great idea, but it sounds like you're trying to promote it to people who have no idea what a podcast is. And I was like, holy shit, you're absolutely right. So, you change things up. My daughter told me, hey, you got to get younger artists in, So it's been fairly diverse, and I've been very fortunate. And I didn't go into this thinking, hey, will I run out of guests? I threw all caution to the wind. And guess what? No problem getting guests. It's a win-win.
Right. Well, people love to talk about themselves, don't they? Don't we, I should say. I include myself.
Yeah. They got the same subject manager. I love me and they love themselves. What's better than that?
There you go. A beautiful marriage.
So I look forward, Frankie, to your coaching on the podcasting front to give me a critical ear or ears to my podcast, because I always look to get some feedback to say, hey, I like this, or I didn't like that, or I had one guy early on. He was very fortunate. He said to me, he goes, it sounds like you're talking inside baseball too much. And I was like, wow, okay, that's good to know. And I really appreciate those type of criticisms. Same thing with anything else we do, I guess.
I think you just get a new host, you'll be fine. Fire that guy.
All right, Frankie, and thank you for coming, Frankie. It's been a podcast that's been we're running really late here. And hey, Frankie, let's talk about the last song you brought to the table. Not that it's your last song, because you have more songs. And,
fingers crossed.
Don't take another hiatus. Come on, keep working. You two,
No plans to take any hiatus anytime soon.
All right, okay. So tell me about My Remedy, and then we'll let the audience have a listen.
Yeah, that song recently became important to me again because my cousin asked me to play it at her wedding recently. Shout out to Gabby and Derek. It just reminds you that even though a song might become old to you, and even more so, it was written, I don't like to talk too much about what songs are about because I like to let people imagine for themselves what it means to them. But, for me, the song wasn't about a real person. It was just a feeling that I wanted to write about that didn't exist. And so for other people, when they hear it, that's actually kind of the magic of not over-explaining your songs, is that song has meant something to people and the relationships they have in their real life. People have made, even just the little social media post where they quote a lyric from it and they'll send it to me and they'll be like, look, it's our song. We were listening to it on the way home from that open mic where we met you, and, it's been our song ever since. And I'm like, wow, that's more than I ever imagined for it. And so, it's I always call it an imaginary love song, but that's only true for me. For everybody else, it's just as real as any other. So,
yeah, I think there's no greater compliment than when you tell a songwriter, "Hey, I've just added your song to my soundtrack of my life because it really touched me."
100%.
That's the best in saying you sounded great. You know what? When a lyric and a song hit you, and I've said this before. And that's why I'm enamored and appreciate songwriters, is you have the ability to articulate things for me in a particular moment that I may have difficulty saying, or I don't say, or I keep hidden, or I've said in different ways. And when it strikes the heart, man, there's nothing better than that, So, hey, that's My Remedy.
It sure is.
All right, let's take a listen to My Remedy, everybody. We'll be right back with producer, singer, songwriter, podcaster, Frankie Matos. Check out the song.
She picks up pieces I can't see. Solving it She knows where all my pieces fit. And I say, oh, oh, you are my remedy. Oh, oh, you have become a part of me. Oh, oh, you keep me on my feet. Oh, oh, I think you are the one for me. She gives me strength to carry on, inspires me to sing these songs. I just might marry her someday. And in my vows I'm gonna say, oh, 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 you are my remedy. Oh, oh, you have become a part of me. Oh, oh, you make me feel so free. Oh, I think you are the one for me. I can't imagine just where I'd be if you never came and reassembled me. You don't make my demons go away. You find a better place where I can let them stay. Oh, don't ever leave me be. Oh, oh, you pick up pieces I can't see.
Everyone, we're back with there's my tongue gets tied. I knew my tongue would get tied at the end of the thing because I'm yapping and flapping my lips too much. We're with Frankie Matos, everyone.
We sure are. Well, the Frankery is the store where my parents bought me from.
Does it come in a pack of 9?
I hope not. That's
Too
too
many
many.
Frankies. And then the buns don't match. Bad joke. Hey, Frankie, I really enjoyed our conversation today. And thanks for giving us a glimpse into your world and how you put the muse together and especially your music. And that's what the Long Island Sound's all about, is the original music that is produced from the wellspring of talent. And you're one of those buckets of water in the wellspring for sure. So,
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for giving people like me a platform, and people better than me, and people worse than me, maybe. I don't know. I won't judge.
you settle.
There you go.
All seriousness, Frankie, thank you so much for your time. Say hi to all, to Pete Mancini. And I haven't talked to Ann in a long time. She's a really great voice. A music therapist, I think she is, if I recall. Yeah, so
Yep.
Anyway, till next time, everybody, be well, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.